My dad said my daughter was too weird for New Year. They uninvited us. My kid said, "It's okay, Mama." I smiled through it. Then threw her the best New Year of her life with 50 people who love her curiosity. My mom saw the post. "You're replacing us," she said. I replied, "No. I'm protecting her from you." 3 days before New Year's Eve, my dad called and told me not to come. He didn't sugarcoat it. He said it straight. "Maybe it's best if you and Mia stay home this year." Asked why. He gave me some nonsense about wanting a more polished kind of party this time around. When I asked what that even meant, he said my daughter, my 8-year-old daughter, was a little too weird for the crowd we're having. He actually said those words. Too weird. Like she was an inconvenience. An embarrassment. He mentioned Bella, my sister's daughter, and how her pageant friends would be there. Said they didn't want any distractions. Meaning, apparently, a child who gets excited about Jupiter's moons and builds little machines out of kitchen junk. It wasn't even about Mia asking uncomfortable questions or doing anything wrong. It was just her being herself. He's smart. Inquisitive. She wears lab goggles around the house and thinks glitter is a structural material. She's not the kind of kid who twirls in a dress for attention. And that makes her disposable, I guess. I didn't argue. I didn't yell or ask him how he could say that about his own granddaughter. I said all right, and I hung up. Then I sat there in silence for a long time. My husband was upstairs wrapping gifts. I could hear tape being pulled and the sound of paper folding. But all I could think about was the way my dad said it, like she was some kind of problem to manage. Mia came in a few minutes later with a paper in her hand. She had drawn a rocket that opens midair and turns into a kite. She told me it could work if we built a spring on the tail and added the right kind of string. Then she paused, looked at me, and asked if we were still going to Grandpa's. I told her no, not this year. She didn't cry. She just nodded and said, "We can do something else, right?" I said yes. She went back to her rocket. And I got up, walked to the kitchen, and started making calls. Not one or two. I made a list. Every single person who had ever encouraged Mia. Whoever asked her about her bug collection or actually listened when she explained what she was building. My Aunt Lily, who once mailed Mia a broken blender just because Mia asked if she could take one apart. My husband's cousins who cheered her on at the science fair. Her best friend's mom, who let them freeze flowers in her freezer to see what cold does to color. Even one of Mia's old preschool teachers who'd kept in touch because, in her words, Mia's brain was a garden. I told them we were throwing our own New Year's party. A real one. With no rules, no eye-rolling, no walking on eggshells to please people who didn't deserve her. I didn't think more than 15 people would come. 52 showed up. Our backyard turned into something wild. We had space heaters, a fire pit, and those giant inflatable planets hanging from the trees. There were glow sticks and telescopes, dry ice and cupcakes shaped like atoms. One of our friends is a science educator and he brought his snakes, frogs, and a bearded dragon. I booked a magician. One of the parents from the science club made sparkling grape juice in test tubes. There was even a kid-size obstacle course Mia helped design, complete with a sign that said, "Inventor's Lab only, no boring adults allowed." Mia ran the whole thing like it was her festival. And she was glowing. I didn't post much, just one picture on Facebook and Instagram. Mia holding up a sparkler with kids gathered around one of her creations. A pulley system made of Legos that was actually working. I wrote, "Here's to the ones who don't fit the mold. You're not weird. You're brilliant. Happy New Year from our little lab of joy." I didn't tag anyone. I didn't say a thing about what had happened. But my mother saw it. Within 10 minutes I had a missed call. Then a text. It said, "So I guess this is how it is now? You replaced us." I answered her. No. I protected her. From you. And I meant every word. She didn't reply right away after I told her I was protecting Mia from them. Not that night. I think she expected me to walk it back like I always did. To soften it. To feel guilty. But I didn't. The next morning she called again. I didn't answer. Then my sister texted me, just a screenshot of the Facebook post and a single sentence. "Wow. Real mature, Hannah." That made me laugh. The same girl who once screamed at a waiter because her wine was too warm, was now lecturing me on maturity. But what really stuck with me was how predictable it all was. The guilt trip, the silent treatment, the passive-aggressive texts. I'd seen the playbook so many times. I used to fall for it. This time I didn't. Later that afternoon, I got a message from someone I hadn't heard from in years. My cousin Matthew. He saw the post and asked what had happened. I told him. I didn't exaggerate or spin it. Just the facts. My dad said Mia was too weird to come to New Year's. So I threw her a better one. He replied, good. They never deserved her anyway. More messages came after that. 2 of my dad's old friends. A former neighbor. Even a woman who used to babysit me when I was a kid. They all saw the photos from the party. They remembered Mia. They remembered how bright she was, how she always asked questions that stumped adults. And they were angry. Not at me, but my parents. But the real blow came a few days later when someone sent me a screenshot from a private Facebook group, one of those local community spotlight pages. Someone had shared photos from our party with the caption, "Best New Year's party I've seen. This family knows how to raise a kid right." The post got hundreds of likes. People in the comments started asking about the science activities. Someone said they wanted to try it for their own daughter's birthday. It was exactly the kind of praise my mother lived for. Except none of it was about her. None of it had anything to do with her family, her rules, her image. She called again. This time I picked up. She started off with, "You know you've hurt your father deeply." I let her talk. She said I humiliated the family, that people were asking questions. She said it wasn't fair to paint them as villains when all they wanted was a peaceful evening. I waited until she was done. Then I told her they were the villains. I said you don't get to exclude a child from her own family because she doesn't wear bows and smile quietly in the corner. You don't get to shame a kid for being curious, creative, different, and then act surprised when people find out. She was quiet. Then she asked if Mia even missed them. That's when it really hit me. She wasn't asking because she cared about Mia. She was asking because she was scared of the answer. I told her the truth. Mia hadn't brought them up once since the party. Not once. Then I ended the call. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. I thought it was done after that call. I had said what I needed to say. I meant every word. I was ready to move on, focus on the new year, and let the silence between us stay silent. But apparently that wasn't enough for my parents. A week later, my husband called me while I was at the grocery store. I could hear it in his voice. Something had happened. He said my dad showed up at the house. Uninvited. Unannounced. He wasn't there to apologize. He was there to prove a point. According to my husband, my dad stood outside for several minutes ringing the bell. When no one answered, he started walking around the house looking through the windows. Mia wasn't home, thank God. She was at a friend's. But my husband was, and so were 2 of his cousins who had helped with the cleanup after the party. When my dad saw them through the window, he started yelling, demanding to be let in. Said he was there to see his granddaughter and that we were poisoning her against him. One of the cousins opened the door just enough to tell him to leave. My dad tried to push past him. That's when things almost got ugly. My husband got in between them. He didn't yell, didn't threaten, just told my dad firmly that he needed to go. That he wasn't welcome. That he had made his choice when he told his own daughter her child wasn't invited to the family New Year. He left eventually. But not before saying loud enough for the whole street to hear that I was turning Mia into a freak and destroying the family name. Family name? We're not royalty. We're not even close. I thought that would be the worst of it. Then 2 days later I got a call from a blocked number. It was someone from Child Protective Services. Someone, an anonymous caller, had reported that my husband and I were hosting unsafe gatherings for children and possibly encouraging strange behavior. The words sounded ridiculous even as they said them. The agent said they had to follow up, but they weren't concerned. They had already looked into our social media. They saw photos from the party. They even said, almost awkwardly, it looked like a really great event. Still, they had to make a home visit. When they came, I showed them everything. Mia's school records. Our homeschooling projects. The shelves filled with books, crafts, science kits. They asked Mia some basic questions. He thought it was a game. At the end of the visit, the agent looked embarrassed. She said, "I'm sorry. We have to follow protocol, but it's clear this wasn't a real concern." Before she left, I asked if she could tell me who called. She couldn't. But the way she looked at me when I asked, like she knew exactly why I was asking, told me enough. It was my parents. Or my sister. Or both. They didn't just want me to regret cutting them off. They wanted to punish me for it. For choosing Mia. For showing the world who she really was, and that people loved her for it. They failed. But now it was war. After the CPS visit, I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I didn't even get angry, not the way I used to, anyway. I felt something colder. More focused. Because now there was no more maybe. No more benefit of the doubt. They'd crossed a line you don't come back from. You don't try to take a child from her parents out of spite. You don't try to destroy a home just because you're no longer welcome in it. They thought I would panic. They thought I'd come crawling back to fix the mess, to smooth it all over. They wanted me to feel fear. Instead, I gave them exposure. I didn't name names. I didn't post some dramatic tell-all. I didn't need to. I just shared what happened. Carefully. Honestly. Publicly. One post. A photo of Mia's moon elevator with a caption that said, "After our New Year's party, someone called CPS on us. They said our child's creativity made her unstable, and that we were hosting unsafe gatherings." The inspector laughed. Literally laughed. Because what they found was a bright, healthy girl surrounded by love, books, and science projects. If you've ever been told your child was too much, too loud, or too weird, don't shrink them. Make more space. It spread fast. Not viral, but fast enough. Other parents commented. Shared their stories. Teachers. Friends. Even strangers. People sent messages saying they'd been through similar things. That they were always made to feel like their kid was a problem instead of something rare and incredible. The post reached a few local parent groups. Then someone from a regional parenting blog messaged me. Asked if they could write about it. I said yes, as long as they kept names out of it. The article went live 2 days later. The mother who said no to shame and yes to science parties. Catchy, I guess. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't have to. The people who needed to see it saw it. And the ripple effect? That was the part one wasn't expecting. My mother's friends started asking questions. Some of them reached out to me. I hadn't spoken to these people in years, but suddenly they were texting me saying they had no idea things were that bad. That they didn't realize how cruel it had gotten. One of my mom's closest friends even said, "Honestly? Good for you. I always thought they were too hard on that little girl." You could feel the image cracking. That perfect, polished family holiday picture they worked so hard to maintain. It was unraveling. And they couldn't control it. My sister tried to do damage control. She posted a vague status about how some people love to twist stories for attention. No one liked it. No one commented. It just sat there. And meanwhile, Mia had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. She was building a roller coaster out of pool noodles. She was teaching our cat to follow hand signals. She was laughing with her friends on video calls and making a list of all the things she wanted to learn this year. He was fine. He was more than fine. She was free. It didn't take long for the fallout to reach them. My mom stopped calling. Not out of grace, but out of strategy. She went quiet after the article gained traction. I think she hoped ignoring it would make it blow over. That didn't happen. My dad, on the other hand, took the opposite approach. 2 weeks after the blog post went up, he showed up at my sister's office and made a scene. I didn't see it. I heard about it from a former coworker of hers who messaged me out of nowhere. Apparently, he was pacing the parking lot, yelling on his phone, accusing someone of sabotaging their family's name. Said something like, "She thinks she's some kind of martyr now." That was the word. Martyr. As if choosing to shield my child from their cruelty was some self-obsessed act of revenge instead of basic parenting. And here's the wildest part. People started distancing themselves from them. Not me. I didn't ask for it, didn't encourage it. But it happened naturally. A few of their church friends stopped showing up to brunch. My mom lost her volunteer role at a local fundraiser. Someone told me a few neighbors started calling them the grandparents who uninvited their own grandkid. They hated it. Because they couldn't spin it. I hadn't attacked them publicly. I hadn't dragged them by name. I had simply told the truth and let people come to their own conclusions. The silence turned into pressure. And pressure made them sloppy. A few days later, my sister called me. First time in months. No hello, no small talk. She launched straight into it. Said I had gone too far. Said I didn't need to ruin the entire family just because of a misunderstanding. I asked her what the misunderstanding was. She couldn't answer. She went off about how hard my parents worked to build their reputation. How cruel it was of me to paint them as villains. That's when I realized something that changed everything. They weren't ashamed of what they'd done. They were ashamed they got caught. I told her flat out, If they had just apologized. If they had shown the smallest ounce of remorse for excluding an 8-year-old from a family holiday because she didn't fit the look, none of this would have happened. I said, you don't get to uninvite a child and still expect the world to clap for your family portraits. She hung up. Thought it was over. But then I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Handwritten. I recognized the penmanship immediately. My dad. It wasn't an apology. It was a threat. It arrived in a plain white envelope with no return address, but I didn't need one. The handwriting was all block letters. Neat, stiff, like someone trying too hard to stay calm. Like someone trying to make sure their words couldn't be traced back to emotion. But I knew it was my dad. I opened it slowly. Just a single sheet of paper. You've said enough. If you keep dragging this out, we'll take action. You're not the only one who knows how to destroy a reputation. Think carefully about your next move. D. No signature. Just that, D. He probably thought it made him look smart. Like he'd written a chess move, not a threat to his own daughter. I stared at it for a while. No fear this time. Just this strange stillness, like I'd finally seen the last card in his hand. He didn't want reconciliation. He wanted control. And he realized, too late, that he'd lost it. I took a photo of the letter. Then I posted it. No caption. No explanation. Just the image. Just the words. Within minutes, the messages started coming in. People were stunned. One parent wrote, "He really thinks she's the problem?" Another said, "I hope she never meets him again." The thread blew up. And what made it worse, for them, was that no one was shocked anymore. People already knew what they were like. The letter didn't surprise anyone. Confirmed everything. The last person to message me that night was someone I hadn't heard from in years. My old neighbor, Ms. Gutierrez. She used to babysit me and my sister when we were kids. She wrote, "I remember you reading books on the porch while your sister screamed about her hair getting wet. You were always curious. Always a little different. I'm glad you're protecting your daughter the way no one protected you." That message broke something open in me. Not in a bad way. Just in a final way. I sat with it for a long time. That's when I realized, this wasn't just about Mia. This was about cycles. This was about what I was never going to pass down. All the silent compliance, the emotional landmines, the performative family values. All of it ended here. The next morning I blocked every number tied to my parents. Blocked my sister too. I archived the letter. Just in case. Then I took Mia to the art store where she spent an hour picking out supplies for her next invention, which I think is some kind of marshmallow launching trebuchet. We ate lunch at her favorite diner. I told her, "Let's make this a tradition." She asked, "Which part?" I said, "The part where we celebrate the weird kids." He grinned. And just like that, the old year was gone. The war was over. And we won.